Hey everyone! So today we're going to be doing some work with our fraction towers in order to find our equivalent fractions and fractions in their simplest forms. So as we've discussed already, all of our fraction towers individually equal the whole number 1. Each fraction strip is broken down into either halves, our pink tower, we have our thirds, the orange tower, our fourths, the yellow, our fifths, the green, our sixth, the teal tower, our eighths, the blue, our tenths, the purple, and finally our 12ths, the black tower. Again, all of our individual fraction towers in each color give a total of 1 whole. So I want to start by showing you a little example of how to identify some equivalent fractions using our fraction towers. So I'm going to start with our pink 1/2 tower. Let's say I grabbed 2 1/4. Notice I have 2 one-color towers, both the same size, which means 1/2 and 2/4 is an equivalent fraction. So now that we've seen that 1/2 and 2/4 is an equivalent fraction with the towers the same size, let's try our teal tower. If I take 3 1/6 next to my 2/4 and also next to my 1/2, they're all the same size, which means that 1/2, 2/4, and 3/6 are all equivalent fractions. So let's try using a different tower to find more equivalent fractions. We can start with our orange tower. Let's do 2/3, and let's try our 12ths. These two towers are the same size, even though they're 2 different one-color towers. So we have our 2/3, and then with our 12ths we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 12ths. So 2/3 is equal to or equivalent as 8 12ths. So I'm going to go back to our previous towers we had before with our 1/2, 2/4, and 3/6. Now we know these are all equivalent fractions, but I want to find which one is the fraction in the simplest form. So when we're using our fraction towers and trying to find the simplest form, we want to look for the tower that is the one-color tower with the least amount of pieces. So our 1/2 has 1 piece, our 2/3 is 2, and our 3/6 is 3. So although these are all equivalent to each other, which one is the simplest form? Well, it'll be the 1/2 piece, which means that 3/6 in its simplest form is 1/2, and 2/4 in its simplest form is also 1/2. So let's try and find another fraction in its simplest form, using our fraction towers, of course. So here we have 2/3, which is also equivalent to 4/6, and also equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 12ths. Alright, so now that we know these are all equivalent to each other, let's find our simplest form. So we had 8 12ths, we had 4/6, and then we had 2/3. So using the towers, we need to find the one-colored tower with the least amount of pieces. So 8 12ths is the most, so that's out. We have 4/6 or 2/3. So in this case, out of these towers, 2/3 is the simplest form of 4/6 and 8 12ths. So now that we've used our fraction towers to find equivalent fractions and identify fractions in the simplest form, I do want to point out just one more thing that we can get from using our fraction towers. So when we had our 1/2, our 2/4, and our 3/6 towers, we knew they were equivalent, and we did notice that 1/2 is the simplest form of the three. I also would like to point out that you could also look at the denominators. So we have 1/2, denominators 2, 2/4, denominators 4, and 3/6, the denominator 6. When looking at the denominators and looking at what we know is the simplest form, 2 does go into 4 and into 6. So it is the least common multiple of each denominator out of these fraction towers.